It's the Regular Expressions Podcast. Join Noah Heldman and Ben Griswold as they talk about technology consulting, AI, and more. In episode 28, Noah and Ben welcome Boz Vitanova, CEO and founder of TeamLift. They discuss her journey, her career with AI, and of course, the 5 questions.
Hello, welcome to the Regular Expressions Podcast. Our guest today is Boz Vitanova, CEO of TeamLift. That's teamlift.co, which I think of as an enabler of employee superpowers. They amplify the best performers in an organization. How do they do that? Well, Boz is going to tell us. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Noah. I like the amplifier of superpowers.
You like that? Yeah.
I like it. I might steal that.
You're welcome to. It's all yours.
So now
nice gift.
Yeah. So Noah's nailing it already. I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear maybe a bit of your background. How did you get to where you are right now, and what are you focused on today?
Yeah, of course. I have been very interested in this topic of how people learn, how people develop skills for the past almost 12 years. And I started out in academia and kind of started going into understanding how entrepreneurs develop new skills. I think you guys know when you're a founder, you kind of need to keep learning new things. And by the time you figure something out, you need to go to the next thing and figure that out. And the people who end up building large companies, they're very good at learning things quickly. So I spend a lot of time kind of understanding how that happens, especially with adults. Developed some concepts that were interesting. For a while, I was very convinced that I wanted to stay in academia, be a professor. I almost applied for a PhD. When that didn't happen, I had one of those kind of like soul-searching phases in life, trying to understand what it is that I actually want to do and where my talents and skills fit. So I went into the startup world. Started one organization first that was kind of commercializing the initial idea of how can we get adults to learn new skills on the job, not through courses, but through experiences, more like stretch assignments. And one thing led to another, ended up starting TeamLift about 5 years ago. And as the need for AI training became very kind of needed, the solution, a lot of what I had researched, what my team had worked on, became highly relevant.
What is TeamLift doing today?
TeamLift today is building AI champions within companies. AI champions are employees who are good at their jobs, and they're good at breaking down processes, identifying edge cases, communicating what a good output of a process looks like. We take those people, most of the time they're non-technical. We have champions that had never opened any of the LLMs. And we train them one-on-one together with an instructor, where they are learning about what AI tools can do. They're learning about what AI tools cannot do. And through that process, they're building AI workflows, they're building automations, they're building agents. So they're unlocking time for themselves, for their teams, and really kind of guiding that AI transformation bottom up.
When we looked at your LinkedIn profile, your tagline says people who are good at their work should decide how AI changes it. And I really love that statement. And I think it ties in with exactly what you're doing now. Obviously, you had to incorporate AI, this crazy revolution, into something that you had been working on for many years, and in the case of TeamLift, maybe a year or so before AI started to become part of the DNA. So I'm curious, with that tagline, and I'll say it again so people don't miss it, people who are good at their work should decide how AI changes it. Are teams and executives getting this wrong? Are they thinking about the problem the wrong way?
A lot of people are thinking about AI implementation very similar to how software implementation was done in the past. I think a lot of people have done, let's say, a Salesforce style implementation where you have a product that is, let's say, finished in a way, and then you have best case practices around how to use it. So we hire consultants, the consultants help you set it up. You put people in a room, you have presentations about where to click, what to do, how exactly to go about it. So not that this process is easy, but it does work top down, where you choose the tool, you hire your system integrators, and then you roll it out. What's different with AI and why that approach fails to produce the same results is kind of two things. One is these tools are evolving in real time, so we do not have best case practices. We need these champions to be discovering the best case practices. And then the second part is with the nature of LLMs, with the probabilistic nature of LLMs. If it is something that's imposed top down, if employees wanted to sabotage it in a way, it's very easy to do so. Because the only thing you need to do is you kind of run the tool, you make it hallucinate, make it produce errors, and then you take it back to management and basically have proof that this is something that's not reliable. So these are the two reasons why more traditional approaches are not working. So I think there is a bit of an adjustment in many companies kind of trying what they know how to do. And then a lot of the companies that come to us have already tried this approach and have encountered some of these challenges.
That last part was really interesting to me, the sabotage by the people who are in a lot of intents and purposes, they're running the show, right? These are your people who are on the ground supporting the business with the tools and all. Why do you feel they might be doing some of that sabotage? What's their motive? I might need one. That's why I'm asking.
So when let's say we're using Riverside to create this podcast, and the way that I'm using it, and Noah is using it, and Ben is using it is very similar. But if we were to go and use, let's say, Claude Cowork now to create a presentation, let's say we're all working on creating the same presentation. What I'm going to do, like what the three of us are going to do, is going to be so different. And there is going to be someone who produces something that's really good. And there is going to be someone who produces something where they basically prove that, well, Claude is not good at creating presentations. So the output of an AI tool really depends on the person using it. So when I say sabotage, I wouldn't say that I have met or encountered people who are kind of like publicly sabotaging things. But what I have seen is people who are dismissing tools as unreliable, which kind of is the same thing. Why that happens? I think resistance to change, fear that it might result in displacement, reducing headcount, which are, real fears.
Yeah, we're seeing it happen, but we also have an opportunity to upskill people, like you're saying, and create these champions. So I want to follow up on that a little bit. The champions you're talking about, they probably fit a certain archetype, your ideal champion. So what does that look like? What makes someone the right champion inside an organization? And do the leaders in these orgs tend to get it wrong? Are they trying to identify people and they're picking the wrong person to be the champion?
What I have seen a lot of is creating these centers of excellence in a way. And most of the people that are becoming part of these centers of excellence are the people who kind of tinker with AI tools, experiment, try things on the side, which is, it's a good thing if someone is tinkering, trying, they get excited about tools. So the majority of champions or champion equivalents in organizations are these people. What we have seen is that helps if someone is excited about new technology. It's not a bad sign, it's a positive sign, but it's not enough. Something that is important is, one, people that can currently get results with their processes. So let's say if it's a salesperson who's trying to optimize their process by using AI, let's say they have a way in which they create sales proposals, and this is something that produces results. It's not going to be, ChatGPT telling them how to write a proposal. They have their process, they use AI to make it faster. So this is one part. People who can already do the thing manually. And then the second part where we are seeing people do very well, because we have different profiles in our programs, is people that have this kind of process thinking or systems thinking, where they can break something down in steps and they can think into, this is the input that goes into this process. This is what a good output looks like. And these are possible edge cases. These are circumstances, things that could come up. So sometimes it could be that someone is not techie at all, but they are very good at onboarding junior employees, where you kind of have to do a version of this. That's a transferable skill. If they have become good at delegating, onboarding employees, like managing interns, those skills tend to make someone a very, very good candidate for a champion.
That makes a lot of sense. And Ben and I, our most recent podcast, we talked about how the bar is kind of low in tech consulting. And we said that around the concepts of responsiveness and professionalism and attention to detail, a lot of those things seem like they fit right into that model. Certainly the ability to teach and transfer skills to others is critical. Especially if you're the champion who needs to get the rest of your org on board. But it's those people who understand what they're dealing with, like you said, in terms of inputs and outputs, and know how to frame it properly to get what they're looking for that can lift the rest of the organization. I didn't even mean to use lift. How about that? Lift the team. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. Ben.
Yeah, Boj, I'm curious, when you're looking at organizations, is there fake AI adoption? I'm asking because I'm really interested in like AI washing, where companies are making claims of the impact, the efficiencies, the we can reduce our workforce because wow, what the impact of AI. And I do think that there's some additional factors in why companies might be making those claims. So I know you're on the inside. You've got some real looks. Do you have any thoughts on that fake AI adoption?
I don't know if I would call it fake, but I think I understand what you mean. The closest I have seen to that is when, let's say you've rolled out Copilot, and Copilot allows you to track how many people are prompting it. And then you assign time savings to each prompt. So let's say technically there is some logic to that. If each prompt saves like a certain number of minutes, This is how many prompts we're seeing. So we estimate that our employees are unlocking this much productivity or this much time. So I think to some extent that makes sense. However, when it comes to real impact, we're very much in the beginning phases of it, and we're still figuring out the best way to measure it. The most common way to measure it, and we also do that, it's not the ideal way to measure it, but it is in time unlocked. So how much time you're unlocking for yourself or your team. And that becomes evident where you move beyond prompting and you have workflow automation.
I was thinking about just, the impact that companies are really able to recognize with AI adoption. And it does sound that you're speaking specifically around AI as a tool, right? And how do you measure that? The use of that tool, which is a tricky business, right? And I personally think that it's quite interesting that companies are making claims of all of the impact in which AI is influencing without having a benchmark. Where were we before we implemented AI? Like, is it fair to, like, based on a feel, we're going to make these claims? Just if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I remember what I wanted to share. My favorite way to measure it, which I think makes a lot of sense, if you have OKRs set in your organization or your team, and then you kind of have a baseline and you have a target, and you have people that are now equipped with some of these AI tools, processes, and you see, can they overachieve their goals? Are we really getting these kind of amplified versions of employees that can now go beyond what was possible before? I personally really like that. I recognize that it's a little bit more difficult. It's messier to get into it, but it doesn't mean that it cannot be figured out. I think to your point, many public companies, especially, you need to report that you're doing something with AI because it influences your stock price. So there is a level of exaggeration. And, eventually kind of things come to light because it's going to get clear whether processes are running faster and whether you're optimizing or being able to do more or newer, more creative things. So I think we're going to go into a phase where a lot of this is going to become clearer, and directions that go into linking to existing OKRs. I think anyone who kind of develops measures like that, I would be very interested in that. I think that's the way to go.
I think so too, especially down at the level in which you have, your core workforce, right? How quickly can they do the research? How quickly can they roll code into the production environment? Right? How quickly can they generate this executive report or dashboard, et cetera? Right? Feels like that's pretty easier, to benchmark and then recognize whether or not there's those efficiencies. I'd say the next level perhaps is where you have this capability. Right now, AI is a capability that we're using throughout the organization. Our teams are collaborating effectively. We're able to leverage. We have a team that has offered up a specific service, and so other teams are leveraging that. And then finally, there might be a case where AI is a business or a product lever or a business lever, right? Like we are introducing AI, so it's used for our business to build upon. But when we measuring at all those levels becomes a little bit more complicated, and to make that claim, it makes it pretty tricky. But I really love the framework that you outlined.
Yeah. This got me thinking more about how, Boz, you said this is new and it will become clear. And I think it's so much just a repeating pattern of what we've seen during our careers. even when I started in 1995, the internet was new, right? And nothing was clear, nothing was regulated. And you start to slowly build these capabilities and structures around how work gets done. It happened again with the iPhone being introduced and social media becoming such a popular thing. It happened again with the cloud and the difference between provisioning servers, which took 4 to 6 weeks, and provisioning in 15 seconds at the click of a button. So we've been a part in our careers of just a huge number of these revolutions. And of course, AI, as everyone talks about, is all happening so much faster. The progress is happening faster. So I think you're right. I think the clarity will come, but it'll be more difficult to come by because so many variables are changing so quickly. So I'm just curious, as a follow-up to that, if there's anything else about this journey you've been on with TeamLift in AI adoption, and maybe having to pivot a little bit from what you thought you'd be doing when you started, looks different than your business journey up to that point. How has AI lack of clarity or speed impacted things for you?
Are you thinking more internally for our team or for our client offering?
Really for you, for how you've structured your team, your business, and sure, that might extend to how you work with your clients. But yeah, it's for how you've done your job.
It's actually very different. So when we started, it's kind of when you're starting a company, you had to go and raise money so you can hire a team. And then when you're building software, you need engineers, you need a designer, you need front end, you need back end. You kind of like need this team structure that you need to raise, to pay. There is a certain time frame through which they need to build. So we went through that process ourselves, where you have the data scientist, you're going to have all these different people. And there is a lot of coordination between them. I think especially the main thing that is so different right now, it used to be like you need to kind of come up with the feature, and then the designer needs to understand it, and they need to design it, and it comes back, and that was not what you had in mind. So you kind of need to go through this process that's iterative, and then it goes to the engineers, and they're like, no, but this cannot be like that. And kind of there is this loop again. So now all of that has been changed completely. We don't do it like that at all. Right now, when we're releasing a new feature, we never go with like a version that goes straight into our platform on production. We go to V0 or something like that, create a testable prototype, we roll it out, we see where it works, where it doesn't work. And then once there is something where we're seeing results, we have an engineer build it. There is no middle person in any of it.
Because it's expensive. It's expensive in terms of time to have a middle person in there. It's another layer of translation in two directions.
And I think there are, of course, products and companies where it is important. And I think we're moving in that direction, where I can imagine in the future, we need someone that comes in and kind of looks at the user experience, that makes it delightful and seamless. But to get to something that works and delivers value, right now, you really don't need a lot. I do think you need someone who can code. I think if you're kind of trying to release a serious product, you probably shouldn't be vibe coding everything. But in order to create the initial version, those tools are so useful. So the main thing for us is we are able to go a lot faster in this in between, like in team coordination that used to be very lengthy, now has like really decreased.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We've seen that for ourselves. We've seen it for some of the smaller customers we work with. And then I think there's a point at which your client size gets to a certain point, and if they haven't taken on that mindset, it may not be accelerating them yet, and it may in fact be slowing them down because they've just added another layer, which is AI and its iteration cycle, plus all the different people who are part of the team trying to get something done. So they haven't really leaned into the efficiency, right? It's an interesting place.
I've been thinking about this topic a lot recently, especially with enterprises, because it works different than how the TeamLift team works. So enterprise, if you need any kind of software for a process, it's such a complex process where you kind of need to find a vendor that sells specifically that. You need to go through procurement. IT needs to get involved. It's kind of like you're embarking on a year-long thing to get what you need. And by that time, maybe you're already in a different position.
Right.
So right now, you can, as an employee, create your own thing and test it out and prove that it works. And you have something that you can show your team, you can show your manager. So that exists, and there are people who are doing this. I think it's going to be so interesting to see how these kind of relationships between employees, IT, different people in the organization, how they shift.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna be, I think, very, very interesting. In smaller companies, what we're seeing is non-engineers getting better at kind of communicating with the engineering team and describing what kind of features would help make the process better. So that's instances where we've seen it work. But I think for larger companies, we're yet to witness what success looks like.
Mm-hmm. I've recently had a conversation where they were talking about who's going to win. Is it going to be the product managers, the product owners, or the engineers? Do the engineers take over also the product owner role? Or does the product owner just get really good at engineering and then the engineers go away? So it's kind of like a race to the finish. Whose role goes away, so to speak? Tough one to answer right now.
I don't see either role completely disappearing. I think both will evolve likely. And there are going to be people who get... One thing that I do think is going to happen is, there has been a saying of a good engineer and a bad engineer, and how the good one is like 10 times more productive. So I think these kind of ratios, people who are good at their job and then they've learned how to use AI to amplify themselves, and people who are okay at their jobs and they have not used AI, what the difference is going to be, how much better one person is going to be, and then what does that do for salaries, team dynamics. That's something that I think is going to be, we're going to see how it evolves, but it's definitely going to be interesting, and there are going to be some winners and losers there.
Sure. And so we should be looking forward to the 100 times developer rather than the 10 times developer. Is that coming?
I think it's possible, and we kind of have signs of what that looks like. And at TeamLift, we don't train engineers, so I have less exposure to the 100 times developer besides kind of the developers we have on our team. But I think in general, when we take an employee and they're using AI to become better, it's what are they choosing to automate? How are they implementing those human in the loop checkpoints? How are they making sure that they're not just putting AI slop out there? So there are kind of new skills that are emerging that are making someone really good at their job.
Yeah, I think on the engineering side, it's interesting that you're talking about that and having less exposure to that in the people that you're training as champions, right? That you're focusing on different roles primarily. And for Ben and me, we feel so fortunate to have been in this industry long enough to have gone through up cycles, down cycles, learn the skills behind the skills. It's not just the syntax of a programming language. It's what business problem are you solving? What is the holistic strategy? Where are the dependencies and the complexities and the risks associated with it? It takes a while to get that bigger picture. And everyone talks about how new engineers are just at a real disadvantage because being able to learn the syntax, those ground rules, is almost irrelevant at this point, because you can generate code, have another agent evaluate it, have another one make sure it fits all the coding standards. And if your structure is designed correctly, it'll probably end up being better than a human in most cases. And there's, like you said, the human in the loop. We're still at a place where we have to have that before we're putting something into production. But I'm curious how you've seen that apply to the other roles that you're helping become these AI champions. Do you find that people with the more entry-level skill sets are already being replaced by AI, have a really difficult time stepping up and gaining these new skills because it's really critical thinking that is valuable at this point, and knowing when something looks good and doesn't look good to determine how to move forward? How are you seeing that play out?
Yeah, I was, as you were giving that example, I was kind of thinking, we went through the process where you're in college or grad school and you write a paper from scratch. And for most people, it's such an excruciating process. And is there going to be something like, was that valuable? Do I now have something that makes me, I have a skill, or part of my brain is more developed compared to someone who is in school now and they never have to go through that process? I think we have to kind of wait and see. These are the things that we won't know. With people who are just entering the workforce, I have some exposure to that, so I wouldn't say a full picture. What I'm seeing with some of the teams we're working with is it is becoming a little bit harder to justify opening new positions, because typically companies want you to prove that you cannot get those efficiencies with AI. So we're going into kind of like a period where there are less openings, and those openings are more competitive. Some of the smaller family-run businesses that we're working with, we have had kind of the parents understanding how important this is, and then having their kids go through our AI champion program. And it is different. There are advantages and disadvantages. Advantages, it's a little bit easier for them to play around and figure things out. So it's a bit more intuitive. They can kind of grasp some of like how to work with make.com or how to work with an agent platform. They can get there a bit quicker. The part that they have a disadvantage with is kind of the part you mentioned, with being more diligent with the output and having that pattern recognition that's been built over the years, where you kind of have a sense of whether something is right or not. So that is something that is, let's say, a bit more challenging. I think it's kind of challenging for kids that are in high school and college now, because we can't tell them what kind of job market they're going into. So they're studying something, but it's likely going to change, but we also don't know what they need to study in order to prepare them. So I think it is going to be challenging for them, but my main recommendation would be to kind of get involved and work on projects that implement these AI solutions, optimize processes, kind of develop that agency, knowing that you can solve really hard things, and then trust that when the time comes, you'll be able to figure it out. Because I think people who can receive a goal and find a way to reach that goal, no matter what you use, what skill you need to build, I think there are always going to be jobs for them.
My ears perked up when you said that you work with children when it comes to
not children,
AI.
not children. This would be like 23, 24-year-olds.
Oh, well,
out of
you know
college.
what? Boj, I'm old enough. That's a child to me.
Yeah,
that's
same.
That's a baby. Yes. But so I think this still applies. And Noah and I have chatted about this. It's when our kids were growing up, they had devices in their hands. They started using social media. Their anxiety started to go up for some kids. There was, just very much the doom scrolling, everything else. And I will say, as a parent, I may not have managed that appropriately. I may not have informed my kids of what the potential dangers of always being online might be. So there's a responsibility that I didn't take on. I think we have another chance now when it comes to AI, with working with younger people, maybe just as a society, we recognize what's a safe way to engage with. And I'm just going to say one of the LLMs for just basic question and answers, right? Or therapy or whatever they're doing. And my question is, where do you feel the responsibility lies to ensure that everyone really understands how to use AI safely? What are your thoughts there?
I think collectively, we're all in a big discovery process where we need to see where this technology creates dangers, where it creates problems. And the more we are using it, testing it in an informed way, and can kind of capture those and work on fixing them, the higher the likelihood it's going to work out for us. And the more we rely on a very smart but small group of people to figure out all the safety requirements, I think that there are way too many variables for them to be able to get it right. But my domain is adult learning. That's the thing that I've spent most time on. You've finished your degrees, you're in the workforce. How do you learn? How do you adjust? There are some interesting initiatives around, what does it mean for education? I think that those are going to be very important and maybe even harder to solve than workforce learning. But I wouldn't say I'm the expert on that.
No, I don't think anybody's an expert yet, right? And I find
that's true.
People,
that's true.
right? It seems that people are just looking for that thing. What's going to pop up where this is the rule book? If I follow this, everything's going to be safe. But not sure is that our universities? Is it big tech? Is it the government, whether it be federal or state? Is it in the House? And not sure where we're going to need to turn there, but I agree with you. We're all learning, and hopefully we can get in front of those things before there is any of that harm done.
I think the best thing we can all do now is really learn. Learn by using it, applying it, seeing where it goes wrong. And the more that happens, the better the likelihood is going to be. I think trying to impose rules, restrictions, I think that's going to be tough, close to impossible.
We have to get it wrong. And the people who impose the rules will also get it wrong. So even if you go down that path, that has to be corrected. And I think of my journey, Ben, I'm sure yours is the same with software development. I didn't have a computer science background, and I'm actually really thankful for that because my learning path was very different. And then I met someone who had a traditional CS degree and taught me a lot of what I might have learned if I'd gone down that path. and realized, oh, I can take the right pieces from that, take my learnings, and I made, at least 15 to 20 years worth of mistakes. And that was a great foundation to build from. So I think we're exactly in that same place. Lots of mistakes, lots of learn from the mistakes in order to build a foundation that's going to carry us forward. And hopefully they're not catastrophic mistakes, right? They're just learnings along the way.
That's kind of interesting, because the environment you just described, a safe environment to experiment and make mistakes, preferably with guidance from someone who's been in it, so the learning time is shorter. That produces the best learning outcomes. So not giving you fixed strategies, but the safe experimentation.
Exactly. I was going to say, I think of kids and how, Ben, you probably had this too. You thought, as you're raising young kids into teenagers, and our kids are high school and college age now. So you assume that you will not make the same mistakes your parents made, because how could you possibly do that? You knew what mistakes they made, so you're not going to make the same ones, and you make the same ones, because there's certain things you have to learn for yourself from screwing them up. There's no other way to learn. And most of those aren't catastrophic. That's just part of parenting, right? And in a situation like this, I think there's going to be a lot of that too. There are things that people who can guide you will help you avoid, and that's great and incredibly beneficial. And things you just have to make mistakes on yourself in order for you to internalize it and actually grow.
We have something that's been interesting. So when people come to us and they start building AI workflows, and sometimes things flow and everything works out, and sometimes there's a lot of troubleshooting and it's frustrating. And we've started kind of keeping track of obstacles that come along the way, and then try to correlate that with skills. And we're still early in this process, but some of the initial data shows us that when there have been obstacles or mistakes, and then you have achieved the win after that, the skill progression is faster, and it's more more lasting.
I totally believe it, and I'm glad the data shows it, because I've certainly felt that way. Yeah, there's no better accelerator than messing something up.
Yeah. When especially if it's a little bit painful, but not catastrophic, so you cannot go back into it. You're like, This is never going to happen to me again.
That's it.
So good. Are we ready for our 5 questions? Should we jump in?
I think we can do
you've
it.
Been on the edge of your seat, Boz, I'm sure. You've got to show the enthusiasm. I'm disheartened over here.
I think it was a little fear, enthusiastic, nervous energy, maybe.
Yeah, a little nerve. All right. Well, by the end of this, we'll have you laughing. No right or wrong answers. I don't think yet. We haven't heard your answers, but so far, nothing's been right or wrong conclusively. Okay. First question, and you've used a couple of these, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say. What's the work-related buzzword or phrase that you'd love to ban forever?
Maybe AI powered, and I must be guilty of having used it at some point. Like, for sure, I've used it, but I think now it's just too much.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Ben used that in a text to me earlier today.
Yeah.
Which is kind of awesome.
Yes. And granted, I was saying it tongue in cheek. Yes.
It's true. Yes. That is excellent. Yeah. Very timely. All right. Question number 2. What is a small habit or tool that makes your workday 10 times better?
Oh, 10 times better. It's not something AI related.
Doesn't have to be. Yeah, it could just be like your morning meditation, or you take a walk.
It is a walk. When I feel overwhelmed, what really helps me is I put on music and I go for a walk. And when I come back, I feel like I know what I need to do. So I end up being like way more efficient with my time.
I have to ask, what music? Does it change all the time? Or do you have a
Yes.
go-to?
I have a very kind of mixed music taste. I grew up in Macedonia in the Balkans, so I listen to Balkan music. I listen to EDM. I listen to pop. I listen to more kind of meditation style songs. So I typically put on a mix of all of it. And then when I start walking and I feel one that I like, I just start the radio mix based on that one.
Yeah.
That's my strategy.
That's right. Yeah. I like it.
That's a great strategy. I love getting outside as well. I think walks are completely underrated. Question 3. Please, and this ties into what you and Noah were talking about a little bit earlier, but think back to a big career mistake or funny fail. What happened?
I feel like I'm still too much into it to find it funny. Maybe in a few years, it's gonna be funny.
It's too soon. Mm-hmm.
too soon for the mistakes to be funny. I would say in the journey with TeamLift, my biggest mistake has been kind of believing that, especially in a startup around fundraising, kind of believing that people who are deploying capital, investors, that they have the answers, and that like overcorrecting based on their feedback. I have gotten myself and the team into kind of like deviating off the path and not trusting ourselves and what we've seen. I think it took us some time to kind of upgrade that belief and stop doing that.
Thank you for sharing that. That could be our best answer to the 5 questions.
Yeah, that is a really good one. It just makes me think nobody is as dumb as you think they are, and nobody's as smart as you think they are.
Yeah.
But that's great. Question number 4. We're closing in. What's the next big thing in technology? And you can't say AI.
I have been so focused on kind of learning, training. That's kind of my area that I would say I know very well. A lot of like smart people in my close circle are very excited about quantum. But it's not, I wouldn't be someone that is kind of who can say insightful things on it yet. It's a topic that I want to explore whenever I have my next vacation. I want to get more into it.
Does that segue into our 5th question just a little bit here? So if you could instantly master one new skill, what would it be?
It would not be learning about quantum, because that one I can do now. I think it would be something that's either kind of natural ability or you had to start as a kid. Probably like drawing, sketching. I'm terrible at it.
Yeah.
Because my mind is more abstract and I think in kind of words, theories. And what I've learned is most people prefer visuals. So visual representations of ideas help them understand things much better. And that's not something that's easy for me. I don't have the natural skill. So if I could just instantly get a skill, I would love that one.
Do you find that AI helps you with that? Like, is there an opportunity there where you do a brain dump and you're like, give me a sketch, ChatGPT or Claude or whomever?
The thing that works for me is diagrams. That's, I would say, the closest to it. My current belief is that with AI tools right now, if you're really bad at something, AI can make you okay, but it cannot make you great. You need to be decent so that you can actually use it. So I'm sure there are people out there who can get models to sketch things for them. That has not worked for me. Mostly diagrams, but I hope they get better so that I can use it.
Yes. That is fantastic. We are at the end of our questions and just wanted to say thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Hope you had a good time.
Of course, my pleasure. It was really fun.
Yep, thank you.